Okay, so let's dive right in. If you can, my man, tell us who you are, how old you are, where you're from, and what it is that you do.
So I'm Thom John. I'm 44 years old, going to be 45 in another couple months here. I'm right outside of Philadelphia in southern New Jersey, and for a job, I'm an engineer at Lockheed Martin. So I'm busy during the day building ballistic missile defense systems.
Wow. So you got a lot on your plate as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, and definitely over the last 3 or 4 years, it was extremely busy, which kind of led to me prioritizing work over my own health, which is what led me to this program in the first place.
I get it, man. And knowing what led you here, going back, how long ago did you join this first initial program? Are you about 10 weeks in?
Yeah, I'm in week 10 now of the initial 12 weeks, so a couple months back, and before that, you and I had talked a few times, just to kind of get the feel for what the program was and how it might benefit me. So
Yeah.
about 2.5 months in now.
So 2.5 months in, and can you just start by sharing maybe why was it that you joined? What was life like back for you then? And what problems were you facing? And just how did you feel overall?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for so it's a few years after the COVID pandemic, but right around that time frame where everybody went into lockdown, it hit me a little harder than most, I think, although I think everybody struggled with it. But we never really stopped going into the office, and we never really stopped having to deliver things at my job. So keep the same schedule, keep the same pressures, but now do it with a bunch of folks who, you know, are processing a lot, staying at home, not knowing about the disease, if there would be a um, vaccine or anything like that available. So there's a lot of uncertainty. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to motivate my team to move things in the right direction. And I just, over a couple of years of doing that, I let myself go a little bit, physically and mentally too. So at the beginning of this year, when things calmed down just a little bit at work, I got through some milestones. Um, I said, all right, now I got to get back to prioritizing myself, because not only have I put on a lot of weight, and I talking to my doctors, they're like, you seem healthy, everything seems good, you're still fairly young, but your weight, while it's stable, you've put on a lot of weight over the last couple of years, so you got to try to reduce that. So easy to say. Um, I tried, or I have been trying, continue to try many different things to make that happen. But this program sounded good in that, it was built for men over 40. So not just, somebody in their 20s or 30s, or, somebody who's maybe a little bit different place in life than where I am. But B, it also, made sure that you could still have that really busy lifestyle that I have, that at work and family, with I have a couple kids as well who are teenagers now. So this was attractive in that it allowed me to do all that stuff. It was tailored for, my age. And so I reached out to you, started talking about, can I get started with this? And, the rest is history. I started following the program, and really it didn't change my life that much. I just prioritize doing the things that we talk about here, like the morning routine and the exercises and the nutrition and the sleep and the hydration, and um, you know, developed some positive momentum, kept that going all the way through, and here I am in week 10.
I was gonna say, man. So for you, even going back years ago, and thank goodness, as the world as a whole, we've made it on the other side. Years after the pandemic, for you, there was a lot going on. You were already busy, successful, doing a lot, leading your team. That pressure never stopped, even during the pandemic. During that time, with all those pressures going on, you had found yourself maybe putting on even extra weight. And then that kind of just multiplied as the years went on. And at the beginning of this year, you said, okay, I got to do something. Doctor said, hey, things are, your markers are looking fine, but I would encourage you to start doing something. For you at that point, when before you came in here, can you share how bad did it get for you? And specifically the state you were in, what toll was it taking on your life personally and professionally?
The biggest thing was, hey, maybe I can refer you to somebody who could help you with weight loss. Okay, that sounds good. Refer me to these doctors. I went and met with a doctor who told me basically, yeah, exercise and eating right is all good, but it sounds like you've tried that and you're not really seeing benefits. So I'd recommend, have surgery and fairly major surgery, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
which did not sound. I was not interested in that because a, there's risks associated with that, but b, it just, I didn't think I was that far gone, as it were.
Yeah.
But the doctors don't necessarily know me, right? They're looking at BMI, they're looking at history of my weight over the few years. So it got to a point where I was looking in the mirror, going, "Yeah, you might, you don't like where you are. You have extra pounds, but the doctors are saying you should get surgery. That
Yeah.
doesn't sound like a good place." So
No.
that was kind of, for me, that was the motivation behind, hey, whether you need surgery or not, you know, let's give this a try to do it another way. Because I think, and I, obviously now I can look back and say I did um, prove that there is a different way, and I can do this with diet and exercise, and I'm by no means have I met with a doctor and he said, yeah, everything's good, you look great. Um, don't worry about the surgery anymore or anything like that. But at least I feel better, uh, and I'm fitting into clothes I haven't fit into in years. Energy is way up, which was a big thing for me because I didn't really notice how much I had, just put on a few extra pounds, a few extra pounds, a few extra pounds, and all of a sudden I'm exhausted at the end of the day. I'm, you know, needing to crank the AC up to keep myself cool, that kind of stuff. Now, all that sounds really negative, but I didn't really think I was that bad to where I was like, yeah, we got to do something like surgery, which seems drastic and crazy. So when the doctor said that, I said, all right, we got to do something about it. That was the turning point, I guess.
Yeah, so that's a big turning point. So you would even, I mean, you're looking after, you want to look after your health and get better. And these doctors who obviously, they're wanting the best for you, but it was kind of not knowing you full in depth personally. They were just kind of maybe doing what they thought that they knew was best for you at the time, which was automatically just going, hey, go straight to surgery. And for you, you were like, whoa, that's just a little bit too far, right? And then and even when you looked in the mirror and you didn't like that guy staring back at you and the extra pounds, from the energy standpoint, you said you were exhausted at the end of the day. How else did you notice, especially in comparison of now? How did you notice that the energy was impacting you on the home front and on the work front to be operating in that state that you were in?
Those years of trying to motivate my team and convince them that putting their all into our work was worthwhile and that they should be doing that. And you know I felt like I was a cheerleader half the time for my
Yeah.
team, and that I had to put all my energy into that to make sure it was successful, to the point where when I got home, I chores around the house that I usually would help out with, I wasn't helping out with, or I would say, yeah, I'll get to that. Eventually, I'll get to that. I'm tired. I need to, rest. I need to sit down. I need to go to bed. And my family noticed. My wife noticed, and I noticed for sure. It wasn't like it was a shock to me. I didn't have anything left because I was putting it all into motivating my team. And after doing that for a couple of years, it wears on you, right? I was getting to the point where waking up in the morning, I said, I got to go do this again. I got to go get myself into that frame of mind. And convince everybody who doesn't want to necessarily put their all into it. I got to convince them that they should, but I don't want to. Like I'm having trouble motivating myself to get up and go, go, go. You know, in the summer, I really noticed when it was hot outside and where I am, it's hot and humid in the summer.
Yeah.
I would come downstairs and just immediately start sweating. And that, you know, I don't like sweating unless I'm working out, right? I don't like sweating just sitting around.
I feel
Nobody
you on
does,
that.
right?
I feel you on that.
Yeah. So to go, you know, a couple summers in a row, really, where I was always just sweating, you know, I said, yeah, we got to do something about this, but I'll do something about that later because I got to get myself and my team through this next milestone. Once we get through that next milestone, then I'll worry about myself. And I said that for a while, which was enough to keep me going to work, but and keep me motivated at work. But it wasn't for my health. It wasn't a good thing. So that was really, you know, how things progressed and where I started to notice the negative effects of putting on the extra weight and not having the energy that I usually had to do chores and help out around the house.
I see. So that really started to take its toll, even though you wanted to lead them to the best. You were giving so much that it was almost like you were running on fumes, and
Yeah,
even you were having a hard time just getting in there, getting yourself inspired and motivated. So then, in turn, it just made it that much harder to do that and lead the team, right?
exactly. Yep. It was, you know, and I often asked, how am I going to motivate somebody else if I can't motivate myself? But at the same time, it was, well, I'm trying, I'm doing the best I can. And I knew my team was doing the best they could. It was just, you know, that's what it was.
Yeah, I get it, man. So even with all that, the kind of the wake up call from the doctor, having no energy towards the end of the day to be able to help around the house, do chores, or even just go into work and be able to lead, with that gusto and that certainty. Even when all that was happening, right? What I'm curious to know is what has life been like for you over the last couple of months?
It has been, you know, very different in that, you know, positively. I getting up in the morning, you know, now that I'm in doing the morning routine, I know I haven't hit the snooze button probably through this whole program,
Awesome.
where I used to hit it 3 or 4 times, and sometimes, you know, I'd end up going into work late because I hit the snooze button so much.
Yeah.
I haven't done that the last 10 weeks or so, and you know that even that little thing to me was that's a big deal because it means I'm getting up and I'm getting out and I'm getting moving, and I have enough energy to do that, and I don't at the end of the day feel like I just have to crash on the couch. So it's I've had a lot more energy. That's, you know, the first thing to that I've the positive that I've had. And yes, the pounds are off on the scale and everything, and the clothes are fitting better. But yeah, that the last 10 weeks where I've felt the best is just feeling back to myself a little bit, back to that energy I had 3 or 4 years ago, back to that motivation that I used to have, to get up in the morning. So that's the biggest thing.
That is awesome, man. And it probably makes life a little bit more fulfilled and more joyful, right?
Absolutely. So, you know, just being able to spend time with my kids who are getting older and my wife, you know, helping out around the house, but spending time with them where I'm not kind of out of it or halfway to passing out at the end of the day, uh, it has been very positive because now, you know, I feel like I'm connecting with them a little more too, which is where I want to be. It's just
Yeah.
where I couldn't be when I didn't have the energy for it.
That is amazing, man. And even with this newfound energy, you're able to connect more with the family, lead the team better. You haven't hit snooze, right? You're getting up and moving. You kind of touched base on it a little bit, but if we can just kind of expand on it even more, what specific results have you gotten since being here within the last 10 weeks?
Yeah, so you know, weight wise on the scale, I think I'm down about 34 pounds now, which is great. And
Wow.
I it's well over the goal that I set at the beginning of the program. So I'm very happy about that. But
As you should be, man. That's incredible.
even more than that, though, this goes back to where I never really noticed, but it was there. Like the extra weight that I was carrying everywhere. It's not like I carried it all just in my gut or something. It was throughout my body to the point where shorts and pants and shirts that I haven't worn in 3 or 4 years, I'm fitting into now again, which is fantastic for me. Um, I went down. Well, I went down to the bottom loop of my belt, but it's still a little loose now so I'm going to have to get a new belt. Is the bottom line there?
Yes.
So quantified wise, that the clothes that I had are way too loose now. The clothes that I didn't fit into, for the last 3 or 4 years, I'm fitting into again. And, I never really noticed that, the reason I didn't fit into them for the last 3 years was because, not just my arms were carrying a little extra weight, but my chest, my legs, my midsection, like all of the above had a little extra weight. And, once I started to lose the pounds, I definitely started to notice that to the point where, I'm going to have to get some new clothes, I think. So I'll go shopping here soon.
Good. It's time for a new upgrade, man. So, I mean, 34 pounds down, you're down to the bottom loop of your belt buckle, which is now that's loose. You notice that the clothes weren't fitting well before. Do you know, in terms of that, like where you were shirt size, and you haven't done the upgrade yet with your wardrobe, that's coming soon, but do you know what shirt size you started at and where you are now, and same with pants?
Yeah, the weird thing was when I put on the weight in the first place, I had those shirts, 3 or 4 years ago that I would button up, and all of a sudden it wasn't, I couldn't button that top button to put my tie on. It was too tight in my neck. And I thought,
Ah,
well, okay, maybe I'm just, I've got a little extra weight. The neck it's just a little too tight. So maybe we'll upsize to, a half inch around the neck. Well, I ended up having to go an extra, I think, inch around the neck in my shirt size, my button up shirts, I mean.
okay.
And now I'm back to where I was. So it was, I would think I was at 16 and a half, and I had to go up to 17 and a half around my neck. And I'm down to 16 and a half shirts again. So that's, from a fitted shirt perspective, that's a whole inch off my neck, which, I don't think of, I think more about inches losing in my waist, but noticing that I lost weight in my neck was a big deal for me.
That's huge,
Um,
man.
and then, the t-shirts and whatnot. I haven't really, I was always in between an XL and a double XL, but I fit into the XLs now without issue. So I don't know if I went down a size or I just started fitting back into the extra large, but it's definitely down.
I love it, man. How about pants? Do you know how that's adjusted?
Yeah, the waist. So they're even from my measurements in week 1 to the measurements I just took for week 10, I think I'm down, almost, I'm approaching double digits in inches around my waist, which is,
Wow.
that's the biggest indicator of, yeah, I got I had a lot to lose, which is, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, um, you know, losing 7 inches, 8 inches around my waist. Those pants that were fitting just right are now falling off. Like literally, I can take them off without unbuttoning them.
Wow.
Um, and that's not just my waist, right? It's also my backside, my thighs. I was looking down at my legs the other day and in shorts and just kind of thinking, yeah, these shorts used to be, I'll say, stretched around my thighs, whereas now they're fitting, just right, almost loose around my thighs. So I never noticed how much I was losing everywhere because I tended to focus on, oh, my waist is too big, or
Yeah.
my neck on my shirt, but it really has been all over the place.
That is phenomenal, man. Like, I mean, you've radically transformed. 34 pounds down, belt not fitting. You're down, what'd you say, seven inches or so? Um,
Yep.
I mean, pants fitting better, down back to an XL. Um, just incredible. And even with this, once you created those results for yourself, how, like, what else was different? What else changed for you?
Well, so nothing changed about work, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, that you're
the-
still busy and still there, but what else, just in general,
but I
like
think,
for how you operate every day?
yeah, yeah. So I think my um, the routine is something that I almost don't even have to think about anymore. It's just you get up at the same time every day. I do exercise in the morning, which I was doing exercise in the morning before, but it's been a little more consistent throughout this program. Because before I used to, go a little like overdrive. Like I'm going to work out for an hour in the morning, and then the next day, no energy, or the next day, too sore. So, I wasn't going every day. I was going every other day or every third day. And with this program, it's been it's, refreshing in that I don't have to spend an hour working out every morning. I can spend the 25 minutes, 30 minutes, get in, and I still feel a little sore. I still feel like I worked out and did something, but I can do it, 6 or 7 days a week as opposed to, you know, 3 or 4 if I'm lucky.
Right.
So
Efficient.
that's one big thing is the consistent exercise that wasn't there before. Even though I was trying, right?
Yeah.
I was able to do that more often now in week 10. The other thing that in week 10 that wasn't there in week 0 or week 1 is just like I said, not hitting snooze, not feeling exhausted at the end of the day, um, has been huge because after I do those movements, after I get up and get moving, I can now take care of the laundry. I can now take care of the dog or cleaning out the dishwasher, or whatever. Things that have to happen that when I wasn't doing them, somebody else had to pick up, and it wasn't my kids. I'll say that. Um, so I've been able to help out with my wife a lot more, I think. Um, and other than that, the routine, the work schedule has still been crazy, still been hectic. But because I've been able to fit in myself and prioritize myself, I think it's just been more consistent that I feel better. And so I'm positively impacting my day as opposed to dragging myself out of bed, dragging myself to work. And then, you know, and coffee is another thing that I haven't mentioned yet, but it was a big part of my life. It still is, but it was a huge part of my life. Just getting through those days in that period where I was putting on weight and challenging with the team. I had to drink 2 or 3 cups in the morning and then probably one in the mid afternoon to keep myself going. Whereas now I'm still drinking coffee, but I'm drinking 1 or 2 cups in the morning and that's it. And I haven't
Wow.
needed it.
Yes.
So that's something a little different, and I don't know if that's positive or negative nutritionally, but
I
at
think that's
least
very
I
positive.
notice it.
That is insane, man. I mean, it's just seeing how it's impacted your other areas of your life. And that's for you, how, knowing all of this, how has this been different from anything you've ever experienced before?
Yeah, I think I've tried. I'm always trying to move more, exercise more, exercise better. How do I do, but the focus was always go to the gym more or run more or do something. And the only thing was the movement. Whereas this program's been different in that it highlights, it's not just work out harder, lift more weight or higher intensity or whatever.
Right.
It's also, you know, what you eat the night before affects how much, how you feel, how you sleep through the night, how you feel in the morning when you wake up, how much water you have makes a big difference. And I've noticed it because, you've pointed it out in some of the videos and the educational material, but I've noticed it where if I don't have the water the next day, I'm dragging a little bit. And I kind of said, well, why, why was I dragging? This is early on in the program, just getting used to it. but I started to realize that um, what I've done before has focused on one important part of things, but it hasn't focused on the entire, you know, nutrition, sleep, hydration, and movement together. And you can't have one without the other. It's not just a, you know, pick your athlete, just work out as hard as them and
Right.
you'll get a great body and you'll feel better. They also have to eat well and sleep well and hydrate. But you never talk about that. You only talk about the exercise. So I think this has been different because it puts the whole package together for me, and it connected those dots that I knew were important before, but I actually saw and felt them impacting how I felt.
Yeah, you put the entire puzzle together where it's like, I think everyone's always doing the best that they can, right? Putting in maybe a valiant effort. But just like I told you just from the beginning in any client, it's like this entire thing, it is about progress, not perfection, but it's entire puzzle. And we even use the analogy, right? It's like maybe back in the COVID days when people were doing puzzles at home or whatever, you spend all that time doing the puzzle, and then how frustrating is it when there's pieces missing? Right? And you're like, oh, we
Yeah.
just wasted all this time. And that's the same thing in here. It's like you focusing on just one thing. It's like, oh, give me the diet, give me the nutrition. It's like it's not that those are wrong questions. They're just incomplete, right? So it's putting it all together. And even with putting it all together, and even what you've experienced before here, now that you've been in here up to 10 weeks, what specifically do you like the most about being in here?
You know, I wasn't sure what to expect when we started with this group approach because it's a bunch of guys that I don't know necessarily,
Yeah.
but I've enjoyed or been pleasantly surprised by the sort of community feel for things. I'm a really introverted guy. I'm not the most outgoing, but through the make sure you're posting your pictures, make sure you're doing these steps. Initially it was kind of awkward. I don't want to post a picture of myself after I work out. I don't know why anybody wants to see that. It's particularly not me. But when I started to see that from other people and realize that I'm not the only one struggling with this or you know making positive steps, even like seeing the other guys in the group um, be successful. And I didn't always get to go to every winners meeting and hear from everybody and meet everybody directly, but just being in the community was nice. It was a little positive reinforcement.
Good, man. I'm so glad to hear that because again, I do private one-to-one, but then I also have the hybrid which you're in, and like that, I think there's always this reluctancy of uh, where certain guys may be like, oh, like what am I getting into? Who are these guys? How can I trust them? And I get that 1,000%. But I found from my experience that when you go inside of a community, especially this, how protective I am for the people that come in here. And so everyone, it's not a big ego show. Everybody's rooting each other on. Everybody has the same challenges. Whether, they had an off day and it's like, hey, let's get back up. Let's keep moving forward. And then obviously, I'm all about show me, don't tell me. So even though, the pictures or whatnot, it's like that right there, that accountability in a sense, it's not only just for me to see, okay, how far is how often is Thom John actually showing up? I think us guys do a really good job at talking a big game, right? But I'm always like, hey, let's put the money where the mouth is. Like, what's actually happening? And 9 times out of 10, when someone's not showing up, more than likely, for getting a picture every now and then, more than likely they're probably not doing it. That's what I've learned. Something's going on in their world. So I'm glad you found that over time you're like, okay, there's something to this, and that inspired you throughout here to keep pushing forward. Aside from that, what would you say was your biggest worry or concern about joining?
I think, to be honest, I think I was most worried that it would not be sustainable. It'd be something that works for, a few weeks or a month and a half. And, but it was, a lot of work, meaning I had to measure every single thing that I put in my mouth. I had to track
Hmm.
everything that, every, step that I took, every activity that I did. And I was worried that it was going to consume more time than I had to give. So not only would it be a lot of work, but it wouldn't be sustainable, for longer term. So my big thing is I've done programs, I've done things like, trying to get into better shape before, and it was good while I was doing it. And then once it ended, it was kind of like, okay, thank God that's over. I don't have to worry about, drinking my coffee black anymore, or
Right.
you know, tracking how much protein I had versus how many carbs I had. Um, and we still do all of that in this program. We still have the right tenets, I guess, of those other programs that I've done. But I was worried that it wouldn't be sustainable and that it would be a lot of work. And it really didn't turn out that way. It turned out to be much more straightforward than than I thought it would be.
I'm so happy to hear that, man. Because, and I don't know if you remember me saying this, but I definitely say to every client, if you ever do something where at the end of it you say, "Thank God that's over," consider you either A, shouldn't have done it in the first place, or you should course correct, right? Like we
Right.
fit this. That's for me. Even you're a high performer, being a high performer myself. Everything is just about efficiency, and I don't. And as you see throughout this, I don't just preach this stuff; I live it. And so I'm not bashing any other method, but again, I think seasons of life dictate what's feasible. Someone in their young 20s with lots of time on their hands and zero, not many responsibilities, those other things may come into play. But when you got, someone like yourself who's being pulled in 1,000 different directions, you need something straightforward to the point, and most importantly, like you said, to be sustainable. So that's
Yeah.
important. And you got the sense that through here that this is something that you found.
Yeah, it's it wasn't. I wasn't necessarily on an app tracking everything I did, although I was caring about some of those same principles. I It wasn't taking me a ton of extra time to do the movements every morning. It wasn't altering my workday or anything. Like I could still keep the same lifestyle. It helped me make better choices and understand why I was making those choices, to the point where beyond these 12 weeks, I don't think it'll be too difficult to just maintain the same practice, as it were,
I
the
love it.
routine.
I love it, man. That was the mission, man. And for you, even that was your concern, right? Being able to, okay, is this something that can be sustainable? Pull this off, especially with how busy your life is. But what were you really like? What were you really skeptical about when you made the decision to start?
It's just like with anytime you're starting something new with somebody you don't know, is it going to be effective? Is it just a lot of hot air? Meaning not really backed with science or understanding or um, proof, just kind of saying the right things so that is saying what I want to hear, which is, you'll lose weight, you'll have more energy, you'll feel better. I, so I was, there's that skepticism there always. I tend to be I'm an engineer, right? So I'm a little more skeptical than some. The videos, through asking you questions, through getting feedback on, why are we eating more protein and less carbs? What does that do for my metabolism? Why does that matter? I've done other programs where they haven't had answers for that. It's just been kind of,
They just said, just
we just
do it.
do it. We just do it and it works. So why are you asking questions? Well, I'm asking questions because I want to understand. And, you were able to basically break through that skepticism that I had. And, I started to realize that this wasn't just a hot air. You're just saying what I want to hear. You're actually giving me tools to be successful and make it happen myself, which I appreciated.
Good. I'm glad for that, man. I mean, that for even things that I do, right? You want to understand, imagine leading your team and you just told them, just do it, just because I said so. I'm
Right.
not saying that that wouldn't work, but I don't know how long term that would work. I think more understanding why you're doing what you're doing so that you're bought into it, and at the same time you actually apply it and you know it, right? It's kind of like the whole analogy of, teach a man to fish. that kind of thing, right? Where it's like
Right.
you'll feed them for life. And it's like these foundations are important. Otherwise, you just end up hopping from one thing to another because you don't really understand what you're doing. And you just kind of like, oh, that sounds good. So and you kind of shared a little bit, what did, whether it was me or just the program in its entirety, do to alleviate that skepticism from you entirely?
Well, yeah, I think it was a combination of like you had the videos and week by week insight into like, week 6, we're going to focus on sleep. Why is sleep important? Well, we're going to go into it. We're going to talk about what happens when you sleep, why recovery is important. You went into it in the videos in more detail, which was helpful. But then, even if my itch didn't get scratched from the videos, I could send you a Q&A, card to say, hey, I know you said this, but can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or, I have sleep apnea. So it's that those sleep weeks were big for me because I had a lot of, have I been this entire time since I've been, diagnosed with that? Have I been fighting a losing battle because I'm not actually getting good sleep? I'm getting adequate sleep or medium sleep or, less than average sleep. Um, and and from the videos, I got a lot of that, but then I could write a Q&A card to you to say, so what about, these sleep cycles? How important is deep sleep versus REM sleep? Why does it matter that you know, I have sort of erratic sleep cycles? What does that do to me in terms of rest? Can that be contributing to why I don't feel super rested in the morning when I wake up? Why I'm hitting the snooze button? And being able to have that conversation with you, even over the Q&A cards and the WhatsApp, it kind of pushed the beyond the videos, which I thought was very helpful too.
Good. So bringing that all around, not only just from the first initial information, but having that backup and that validation of, okay, then that clarity, right? Of like, okay, I heard you here. Can you just elaborate on it? And bringing that, just that helped alleviate any of the skepticism, and just gave you more certainty.
Yep, exactly.
I love it. And what would you, I mean, at this point, what would you say your final thoughts are? Or actually, before I say that, what would you say to the guy who is maybe watching this? He was maybe in a position to where you were, whether it's carrying a little bit of extra weight, maybe his doctor has said something to him, or he's had a wake up call on himself, or he's just exhausted at the end of the day, or dragging through the morning, whatever it may be. And he may be really skeptical, right? What would you say to anyone, to that guy watching, if he's made it to this point? What would you say to him, if he was considering to reach out or just work and come in here in general?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'd say is your skepticism is valid. There's a ton of material out there that isn't, that they're trying to get clicks or they're trying to get um, money from people just for the sake of throwing it out there. This is not one of those programs, though. So the skepticism is completely valid. Do the research, whatever research you have to do to get yourself comfortable. And even if you try out the initial 12 weeks like I did, um, you can see for yourself. You'll break through the skepticism because you'll be getting the feedback and it's whether it's one-on-one or in the group, you're going to get the attention that you need to feel comfortable. So even if you're the most skeptical person, um, and it takes a lot to convince you, you'll get that through watching the videos, through practicing the steps, the program that's laid out. And then, Logan's here to talk you through it, give you all the answers you need, as much as you need at any time of day, because it's all through WhatsApp and online. So you don't have to worry about waking somebody up or annoying somebody. So be skeptical and do research. But I think with this program, you'll see that um, it's actually well grounded and you can be successful in it.
I love it, man. Thank you. And what would you say your final thoughts are about being in here, working amongst me, just the program in general?
Yeah, it's been very positive. Like I don't have a lot of like, it's I'm not a real outgoing person. I don't have to be at the gym. I don't have to see everybody in person. But this program has found a way to, you know, help me be successful while not being overburdensome. Like, not taxing my time or my activity or my energy to do a bunch of extra steps. Um, it's just been refreshing that I can actually make positive steps, feel better about myself, have more energy, lose weight, um, without having to dramatically alter my lifestyle. So I think the program does a really good job, and it has been laid out, I'm sure, over many iterations and tweaks and improvements. But the final thoughts, I guess, are it's it's easy to be successful as long as you make the commitment to prioritize yourself, which is what I had to do to get started. Once you make that commitment, this will give you the tools you need to be successful.